All right, everybody, welcome back to the Leadbase podcast. I think it's a podcast. That's what we're calling it. We're on episode 3 here, and in today's episode, I'm speaking with Elijah Groves here. And I wanted to get him on because he's a sales guy. He's been working digital leads for quite a while now, and I thought it would be a good perspective for you guys who are watching as marketers to understand what salespeople are looking for in terms of receiving digital leads from you. And if you're a salesperson, you might also be able to pick up on some sales tactics as well, because Elijah's becoming a veteran in the space. And so I will leave it to you to just, Elijah, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and your experience, working digital leads, being a salesperson.
I definitely haven't been doing this for super long, but I've done enough volume to, I want to call myself a veteran, but I've definitely done a lot of volume. In the amount of time that I've been doing this, I've called a lot of people. I've spent over $70,000 on ad spend.
Nice.
And that's not client's ad spend, that's my ad spend. So I've done a lot of repetitions. So I started as a intake specialist for the law firm. It's a disability law firm that I work with. And I wasn't generating my own leads initially. I was working their leads. They kind of had all sorts of different sources, call-ins. They were doing some stuff from Facebook. They were doing a couple other lead vendors that they had. And it was kind of just all over the place. And so they hired me as a intake specialist just to call these leads and then, get all the client's information for the law firm and then send them the paperwork, and then I would just get paid on a commission basis. And I only did that for I think probably 2.5 or 3 months. And then after that, I was like, this is going really well, but these leads kind of suck. Is there any chance that you guys would, be interested in, what if I just generated the leads and then they paid me a little bit more than they would otherwise? And so I started doing that just as a test, just generating.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know what I was doing. All I knew was, this law firm is run by people that are really good at the practice, but they have no idea what they're doing with the marketing. And I'm just a young fellow that can probably figure out the lead gen stuff. So I was like, let's just see what happens. And it went really well initially. And so I kind of just doubled down on that. And I was like, this is a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity in general, but especially since the niche that I'm in, like the law, specifically disability law, it's just there's not a whole lot of competition as far as other lead gen companies, and especially not lead gen companies that are doing what I'm doing, where I'm actually the one calling them. That's one of my biggest advantages, because a lot of these other lead gen companies, they have. I'll get into this a little bit more as we talk, but I think one of the biggest problems is it's the separation, because you have lead generation and then you have sales or intake or follow-up sequence, whatever you want to call it. But you have lead gen and then you have follow-up. And the disconnect, like the distance between those two things, is really what can make or break you.
Yeah, I mean, 100% with obviously speed to leads a piece of it. And when you have you're literally managing the entire funnel from ad to sale, obviously that makes a huge difference. But then also just little things with messaging and having control in that. I think that's something important to consider as a marketer on our end, is we're always just trigger happy to just let's get as many leads as we can. Haha.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you send them to somebody and they're like, these suck, as you said to the practice at one point. And so I think really getting into the mind of the person that you're selling leads to is going to be crucial. I think people also think of leads as just data points, but these are real people that are responding to an offer, that are going to speak with someone about that offer and spend their hard-earned money. So we need that process to be very smooth for them. And what would you say was the biggest difference between when you took over the ads from the practice? What did you do differently that you think made the biggest difference?
So the biggest thing is being able to control your landing page and the actual questions you're asking. Because like you said, I mean, a lot of lead gen is just kind of a name and a phone number. You're selling a name and a phone number, and sometimes that can work, but it's not very specialized. It's not very specific. And so being able to ask the prospect, right, turn the impression into a lead, not just by getting their name and their phone number, but getting them to answer. On my lead quiz, I think I had 8 or 10 questions. And it's not really basic stuff. There's specific questions to the niche that I'm in. Being able to control that is I'm not going to just generate a lead. I'm going to generate a lead that's exactly what we're looking for. Right. And yeah, like you said, you can't just I can't get away with skimping on the quality because I'm the one working the lead. So it's like
Right.
if I skimp on the quality, I'm just hurting myself. So
Right. Totally.
it holds me accountable, and that might be a good way for other people to look at it, even if you're not working your own leads, but just it's kind of like treat others like you would like to be treated.
Right. Golden
Just
rule.
like sell the leads that
Right.
you would like to work yourself.
Right. Yeah. That should be like a slogan or something on Leadbase. That's funny.
Yeah,
Honestly though, yeah. If people could imagine it's like, hey, would you want to speak to this person who literally filled out nothing, or you
yeah,
clickbaited them into like completely filling out something for an unrelated offer or whatever stuff you're running? Really
exactly.
considering that is important. And I think some people run into issues because they'll run leads to a lander and they'll have too many questions to start to be way too complicated, and they'll get no leads. And
Yeah,
then from then on, they're like, okay, well, I need less questions so I can get leads. So that's why we talk about start with a lead form, start simple, and
yeah,
always think about how do you grow that, because a lot of the people that are seeing a lot of success in Leadbase are ones that are asking 8, 10, even 20 questions on their
yeah,
form and like really getting a high intent lead. But that only comes after you've kind of like you figure out a lot of the
exactly.
creative aspects, the hooks, the offers. So
Yeah.
I think that's obviously important.
Yeah, it's so that's why Leads Hook is so helpful too. I love Leads Hook because it gets so specific with the what percentage of like the dropout percentage, because
Right.
you can see how far you can push it. You can start with 5 questions, but if everyone's completing those nodes, it's like, what if I added in another one? And then if
Right.
95% of people are still going through that one, it's like, well, there we
Totally.
go. Let's see how far we can push this.
Yeah, and sometimes we'll add questions and there's almost like a 0 or like 1 or 2% drop off. It's like, well, might
Yeah,
as well. Like, you might as
yeah,
well have those
exactly.
in. And a lot of times if you're going from if you really take it further and you have 12 questions in your quiz and you go to 15, it's like if someone's going through 12, they're probably going to be okay going through 15, assuming that you're not
Yeah, at
asking
that
like
point.
anything too nuts, like their social security number or something like that. But
Yep.
which some people do ask in their funnel. But yeah, no, I think that's really important to consider. And what would you say, like in regards to quality? What traits do you see in like the conversations someone picks up the phone and like pretty quickly you can tell they're a high quality lead versus not a high quality lead? Is there anything that
Mhm.
kind of stands out to you?
So friction, when you're generating leads, friction is it can be a good thing or a bad thing, and it's exactly what we're talking about here. Where if you add more questions, that's more friction. Or if you, for example, I don't do this, but if you required them to schedule an appointment, or otherwise you're not going to contact them, that's a lot of friction.
Right.
And you gotta find the balance of using that friction to your advantage, to where I don't want them to be able to put in. When I was first doing this, it was on Facebook Instant Forms, right? I don't
Mm.
want to have an auto-filled name and email and phone number, and then they hit submit, and that's it. And that's
Yeah.
the only thing they have to do, because there's absolutely no friction. So
Mm.
I was doing that for a while, and I was getting a hold of these people, but they're like, "Who are you? What are you talking about?" I
Yeah.
don't remember. It's the kind of person I'm talking about here. But
Yeah.
when you switch to a landing page and you have the correct amount of friction that they have to actually think about their answers, that's night and day difference.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had clients that I've like consulted or just people in lead base as well that are like, oh, like people pick up the phone and they say,
Yeah,
who is this? And they don't know. And there's like people don't really get it. But like if you've ever filled out a Facebook lead form and it's autofill, like and someone calls you a day later, like there's no chance
yeah.
you're
Who
remembering
are
that.
you?
But if you went through
Yeah,
totally, and
that was
that's
years ago.
people don't really get that, I think, a lot of the
Mhm.
times. And that like every piece of friction adds like this memory, because the friction is what's like cementing in their mind is, oh yeah, I
Exactly.
did that thing, or I really wanted to get the offer at the end of the quiz, and therefore I went through the friction.
Mhm.
That's going to cement in my mind. Versus it's almost the same as like, do you remember the social media meme you looked at yesterday? Like
Yeah,
you don't remember that. And that
yeah.
your ad's just in the memes there somewhere, and somebody filled out
Mhm.
autofill, like boom boom
Yep.
autofill, yeah sure, I'll get a quote for whatever. It's like they looked at 100 other memes after that about whatever,
Yeah.
and they're not going to remember it unless you change that experience for them, which is again why.
You'll also notice that about instant forms, specifically on Facebook. You'll notice like Meta will target people that are like the instant forms people that just
Yes.
it's like they're filling out they fill out an instant form as if it's a meme, or if they're like liking the post. That's like the
Yeah.
same type of thing. For them, they just fill out like 12 of those things in a day.
Yeah, they think they're scoring points. Oh, an instant form. I got to fill this out. Like it's my duty.
Yeah, they fill
And
out
then
12 of them, and it's not even the phone number that's active anymore.
totally. Yeah, no, it's and then Facebook obviously sees that like, oh, well, this person likes this, so
Yep.
let's give them more of this. And that's what you're getting with your instant form. And there are people that make it work with instant forms because they put in non-autofill questions, they
Yeah.
expand the form a little bit. I've even found though when I send like some traffic to a landing page, depending on the niche, if I have a simple landing page form, the same
Hmm.
thing can happen where their computer still has autofill options. And like if I'm only asking
Yeah. Hmm.
name, email, phone number, and like one question, a lot of times I'll still get the same like, who is this?
Hmm.
Because it's still not enough friction. And it depends on the niche, and that's something that you have to test out in your niche for those that are watching this.
Yeah, definitely.
It's important to test out what lead sources consistently convert the best for you. I think you said you're on Meta. Are you doing anything else? Like what have you, tell me more about the sources that are working the best.
Well, I don't know. I can't speak on other niches, but what I have found is Meta and specifically Facebook just works the best for me because I've tested a lot on TikTok and high response rate, like high contact rate on TikTok,
Hmm.
lower quality, lower intent people. So it's like
Interesting.
I'm getting a hold of a lot more people if they're TikTok leads, but they're not as interested. Like that's what I found for and that's probably just because my target audience they're more on Facebook. But yeah, Facebook, Instagram, you can do both through Meta. I never choose only Facebook. I always just let Meta decide as far as placement goes. And I still get Instagram leads every once in a while, but it's primarily Facebook, and that's what I found works.
Gotcha. And in terms of Facebook, there's definitely people out there that have tried Facebook and they're like, Facebook doesn't work. And there's obviously some stuff we've talked about in terms of how to make it work. You said you spent around 70,000. Do you know
Yeah.
what your return on ad spend would be off of that
Oh
approximately?
man, it's hard to say. The arrangement that I have with the law firm is it's a revenue share.
Right.
So I get the representative, the lawyer will get a fee after they win the case, and then I get a percent of their fee. The problem is the payout cycle is super long. The niche that I'm in, it's not like a couple months, it's a long time. So building that pipeline has been very financially difficult for the past like year and a half, but
Right.
um, return on ad spend probably altogether because I wasted a lot of money just learning this thing, but
Right.
probably altogether close to like 5 to 1 or 6 to 1.
Wow. That's really good. That's,
Yeah,
yeah,
now I
super
can
strong.
I can do better than that now, but it just all together, yeah, probably 5 or 6 to 1.
Are you able to share what percentage you get as a back end deal?
Yeah, I get 12.5% of the
Okay.
arrangement, and the
Right.
reason that my whole offer, right? There's another. I won't say the name of the company, but there's a company that does the exact same thing, where it's just revenue share, and they get 25% of the
Oh,
representative fee.
okay.
And so my offer is literally like, I'll do the same thing but better for half the fee.
Right.
The
Nice.
law firm's like, okay.
Right. Do you work with just one law firm or are you working with multiple law
Yeah, it's
firms?
just one law firm right now. I've
Right.
thought about expanding, but right now it's such an upward trajectory that I've been working with this one kind of whale client that I'm just gonna stick with them for now and then see what happens.
Right. I assume they can kind of take as much as you can give them in
For
terms
right
of
now, yeah,
cases.
yeah,
Yeah. That's nice. Yeah. 5 or 6 to 1 is amazing. Like that's awesome. And I think this is a case where a back end deal makes a lot of sense because you were working with them before, you know them. I assume
yeah.
there's some
I
trust
trust them.
built
Yeah.
up there,
Hmm.
and which is obviously very important. Also, it's not even trust in the fact that they're going to pay you or not. It's trust like can they close deals, and you've seen that system
Yeah.
work. That's
Hmm.
what it really comes down to. I mean, you're the one closing the deal, so you have like a good, you have a bit more experience
Yeah.
in terms of being involved in that as well. So I think that gives you a huge advantage for sure. But no, that's cool to hear that you're crushing
Hmm.
it with Meta specifically.
I would definitely
Um,
I would recommend people look into some revenue shares like that. Like not for everyone, definitely not for everyone, but I would say retainer is like I think you feel the same way. Where retainers can work, but pay per lead is better just in general. And then in my opinion, it's like look into some kind of revenue share, some kind of profit sharing, because that could be if you find the right client, that could be really super lucrative for what you're doing.
totally, yeah,
Depends
100%.
on the niche, but yeah.
I actually think RevShare is like we actually have done some rev shares that have worked out really well for us, and I think RevShare is like the epitome of like if you found the right person, it is hard to find the right partner. In your
Definitely.
case, it's obviously worked out, and I bet you've made more money doing rev share than if you just were selling leads, and your
Yeah, I have.
client's happier
Yeah.
because obviously you're closing deals. So you're going to have a long-term relationship from that. And I think, yeah, so I think if you're out there looking for a rev share, one way you could start is having them cover, the ad spend, and you get a smaller percentage. Like in Elijah's case, maybe they cover the ad spend and you only make 4 or 5% or something to start, so that you could get comfortable with like a brand new client, or you start on retainer and you convert to, paper deal, assuming that your quality is there and they're really happy with it. So there's lots of different methods to doing all this, and I've kind of always been someone that's like pay per lead or die, but I'm changing my perspective a bit on that, because I think what's more important is becoming an expert at one thing, as opposed to necessarily the model. Because there's some guys with like retainers in boot camp that are like, they have 30-40K retainers. Like, it's
Yeah.
pretty nuts. Like, if you find a huge client, obviously there's Coca-Cola pays their marketing agency millions of dollars, and that's a different story. But I think it's more about becoming an expert like you have in the legal space, and you're able to provide value that no one else can offer. And then there's the marketing agencies that are like, I'm in legal, I'm in roofing, I'm in insurance, I'm doing everything. And it's like, well, good luck. Like, you're not going to be able to provide true value, unless you could, I think, become an expert, because of how competitive it is out there. So shifting gears a little bit, have like, when you're on these calls with these leads that come from Meta, like, give me an example of like a lead that maybe is just, I'm ready to go right now. Like, let's get this case going.
Mhm.
Or, and then an example of a lead where it's like, oh, I don't know, like, I was thinking about it, I busted my leg in a car accident, whatever, but
Yeah.
I don't trust you guys. Like, give me an example of an easy lead that's come from Meta, and then like a really objection overcoming lead that you had to face.
I close almost all of my clients the first time I talk to them.
Wow.
So I do at the end of the lead quiz, it redirects them to a Calendly scheduler, an appointment scheduler, and about 40 to 50% of them will book an appointment. And so I call the appointments. If they don't book an appointment, I still call them. But I don't talk to very many people where it's like, let me think about it, because,
Right.
and again, that's probably just the niche that I'm in. These people are pretty desperate for help, a
Right.
lot of them. And if they're on Facebook, they're not searching like disability lawyer near me. They're usually pretty pitiful in their
Right.
situation, and then we come across as like basically providing a solution that they weren't even really thinking about. I think a big part of it is speed to lead increases the quality too, not just the
Right.
conversion rate. That's what people got to understand. It's not just the conversion rate, but the quality of the lead actually does change, because they forget
Mm.
who you are. So it's
Right.
like, it's not a matter of high intent versus low intent. It's a matter of high intent will turn into low intent. So if
Mm.
you call these people really fast and you introduce yourself and you're energetic, and then that gets more into the sales part, you're not someone that's overseas that doesn't even know how social security disability works. It's like,
Right.
hey, dude. For me, it's like, I've been running these ads that's actually me in the ad. So it's the funniest thing, because I just literally do everything. So it's like,
Right.
hey, I'm the guy in the ad, and then it's like the whole process is just me. That's
Right.
not as scalable, but if you have those kind of advantages, then definitely use it.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's actually something that a guy in the boot camp, Sam Chan, does. He's
Mhm.
an insurance salesman. He's in all his ads, and I think he's around the same, like 5 or 6 to 1 ROI on his ads, and he's
Mhm.
able to do the same thing.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm the guy, I'm the talking head that's in the ads. Like, how's it
yeah.
going?
It
I think
feels
that's
funny because,
definitely,
yeah, I'm in the ad, and then they scheduled the Calendly appointment. It's like, hey, it's me again. You just scheduled an appointment, and then I'm the one that closes them.
yeah, I think that's,
It
I mean,
works.
that's another thing to think about with just like the throughput of your funnel. It's like, how disjointed is it?
Yeah,
How's your handoff? Like, a lot of people don't have a proper handoff. So it's, you have your lead generation brand, like, Legal Lion or whatever
yeah,
is your lead gen brand, and then you've got your client, and it's like the lead comes through Legal Lion, then they know your brand a little bit, but then Bob's legal consulting is calling them, and they're like, who the heck is Bob? I just filled out this other thing. So that
hmm
handoff is
yeah,
obviously crucial. And that's why I think having dynamic thank you pages, at least having your client on the thank you page and like
yeah,
showing their face and showing who they are. Hey, this person's going to be calling you. They're an expert. Here's their reviews. They've done 60 million in cases or whatever it is, to kind of like make that trusted handoff make sense for the lead. So yeah, I think that's super crucial. Before we wrap up here, what's kind of one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's starting out in sales? it could be in the legal niche, but just sales in general. What are one or two things that have helped you be the most successful, you think? What's moved the needle the most for you over the past year or so?
I don't think I have an answer that's out of the box. I think my answer is very cliche, and that's just if you're in sales, you got to make a lot of calls.
Right.
It's like you're gonna have to do a lot of repetitions. Get ready to work a lot of hours, a lot of boring hours.
Hmm.
And you do want to balance that with like utilizing technology that makes sense. Like try to find a phone that makes sense where you're not showing up as spam. Um, email automations, text automations, when to leave a voicemail, when not to leave a voicemail. Like you want to try to utilize that kind of technological and building a follow up sequence. But you also just have to make a lot of calls. And so like if you're trying to get into sales and you're on a commission basis, like just get ready to make a lot of calls is pretty much all I can say.
Fair enough. I think it's cliche for a reason because it's true, and especially just with it's 2025. Everyone has access to the internet now. This everything is competitive. The person who makes the most calls, who has generates the highest quality leads, who does things differently. I say this a lot within the marketing side. If you can differentiate yourself, that's where you can become successful. And everyone who I've seen that is successful, um, in like who's a part of the boot camp, it seems like they've all carved out their own little like competitive advantage. Like you found this, you're in the legal space, you found this way that you could do a back end deal, and that's your thing, and now you're the expert at that. Or the guy Sam I was talking about, he figured out how to become an expert in final expense and use these videos of himself. And George, who's one of our coaches, is in roofing, and he focuses on just like super high quality leads, and I think he has a team that kind of sets them. And everybody seems to have their own competitive advantage. So if you're starting out, you might not know what that is yet, but one thing you can do is just outwork people, make more calls, test more ads, drum up more creatives. Don't just use a template or do like the status quo. If you're getting into, I've seen a lot of salespeople that get into sales and they're just like, yeah, I made a few calls and no one picked up and this is hard. And it's like, well, go do something else.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of is what it is. That's the
Mhm.
nature of the world that we're in, is you have to be a competitor. So no, I appreciate it, Elijah. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us. I think this is going to be really valuable for both salespeople and marketers out there. So, and yeah, if you guys want to chat with Elijah, he's in the Leadbase bootcamp. I think you're probably in our free school as well, so you guys can always join that in the description of the video, and we'd love to chat with you there. And we're going to be doing more calls like this with more experts in the community. So we'll stay tuned. Any last final words for the podcast, Elijah?
I will shout out specifically in the boot camp in October, November, and December of last year when I was really putting together my follow-up sequence with Leads Hook and the landing page. Joining the like the weekly calls with the other Ryan, that's like that in my opinion that would be worth joining boot camp by itself. Like without any of the other features, like that was such a big help because like,
Awesome.
stuff like Leads Hook is a great platform, but there's just not a lot of videos or information on it. Kind of same with Unbalance, and so just having that weekly call was just super helpful to set things up. So if nothing else, I would highly recommend joining just for that.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I do a weekly call in the boot camp. I'm more of the marketing guy. And then Ryan B, my business partner, he goes kind of deep into the technical side of quizzes and landing pages and softwares and automations and everything. And you also get that group call with him, as well as some other calls with some other experts. So yeah, we like the group coaching method, able to help as many people out as we can and have good convos. And there's some people in there that are smarter than us that we were kind of having coach as well. Maybe Elijah's gonna have to do like a sales call or something, teach these people how to sell and get dialing or something like that. So
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm there yet, but
I don't know. Sounds like you're crushing, man. But regardless, appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the Lead Based podcast, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.